Premiere Pro is a powerful nonlinear editing system, and it gives you some pretty good real-time effects. It gives you great compositing with chroma key using the Ultra keyer. It's got slow motion controls. It's got great audio, but it is primarily a cutter. And it's never intended to be a completely standalone application. If you want to have a complete end-to-end solution, then Adobe really have in mind that you're going to get Production Premium or perhaps even the Master Collection. Although this course is about Premiere Pro specifically, I'd just like to take a few moments to talk about why Adobe are describing Premiere Pro as the hub of post-production and what that really means in the context of Premiere Pro and the rest of the applications in the suite. I'm going to run over some of the standard workflows you might follow in order to incorporate those applications into your post-production cycle, and we'll just see how we get on. So first of all, I want to talk about After Effects. After Effects is a very powerful finishing application. It's an industry standard, and the interoperability between that application and Premiere Pro is really unique. I'm just going to save this project as a complete version, so you can take a look at the version I produce later on. Here I have a clip on my timeline, and I want to send this piece of media over to After Effects. Now, the traditional model would be to go to the File menu maybe and save this as a file and then import that into After Effects and then bring it back again. But that takes a bit of time, and you're losing generations of copies of your media, and you have to know an awful lot about formats. With Premiere Pro and After Effects, I just need to right-click, and down here on this menu, I've got Replace with After Effects Composition. When I do this, Premiere Pro hands over to After Effects, and here is After Effects. And what I get in After Effects is the original clip, and that clip inside a composition. A composition is the After Effects equivalent of a sequence, a series of clips together to make your finished output, your composition. So here's my clip, and inside of After Effects, just to illustrate the relationship between the two applications, if I do a really simple, I'm going to do a preset color wash effect here. I'm just going to drag and drop this as I would inside of Premiere Pro. And you can see right away it's pretty stark. It looks like something out of the film Alien, but there it is. So let's say I think that's perfect. If I toggle back now to Premiere Pro, you can see the result updates inside of Premiere Pro dynamically. And this is the special relationship that Premiere Pro and After Effects have. You could have After Effects on one screen, Premiere Pro on the other, and After Effects truly can become your effects engine for Premiere Pro. It's that fast. Equally, we have Audition, and although the relationship between Premiere Pro and Audition isn't quite as dynamic and alive as it is for After Effects, it's still pretty fast. I'm just importing some extra media here, and I'm putting these items into my timeline. In fact, I'm going to move these around a bit so you can see what happens in Audition. So let's say I've decided that's exactly how I need my sequence to be. And then I decide that I want to send this over to Audition. Now, just for good housekeeping, I'm going to duplicate this sequence. There we go. And I'm going to rename this Audition so that you can have a look at this later on. Okay. So now I'm going to go up to my Edit menu, and I'm going to choose Edit in Adobe Audition and Sequence. Now, what I want to do is, it's actually two ways you can interact between Premiere Pro and Audition. One way is like this, where you get the entire sequence, and it comes in as you might transfer a project to Pro Tools from Media Composer or another nonlinear editing application. It's all automated, and you get copies of your clips to work on. What I want to show you is a little bit more succinct. I'm going to select an individual clip that I want to work on, and just as I would right-click to edit that with After Effects, in this case, I'm going to choose Edit Clip in Adobe Audition. So now I've got a clip here with my waveform and my special spectral display in Audition. This gives you a visual indication of frequency in the way that the waveform doesn't. And all I had to do was right-click and say, please give this to Audition, and Premiere Pro takes care of it. And this is a feature I'm really in favor of within the suite, that as a creative, you don't have to think about your settings. You don't have to think about importing or exporting. You can just say, make it happen, And once you're within the world of Adobe, all of the applications can speak to each other and hand each other assets that will maintain A, the original format, and B, when you generate new content, it's going to have the right settings, the right frame rate, the right sample rate, and so on and so on. But this is just After Effects and Audition. We've also got Photoshop, of course. If I just move this media in here, and I should have, here we go, I've got a Photoshop document. If you import a PSD, Premiere Pro gives you options for how you're going to import things. I can even have the individual layers if I like. I'm going to merge all of these into footage. And there we go. I've now got an item that I can incorporate into my timeline as if it were any other graphic, any other title. If I do that, let's just pull this over here. It's kind of small relative to the original media. If I want to, I can choose Edit Original or Edit in Photoshop, which will open up many different kinds of asset. But if I do Edit Original, this is going to load up Photoshop where I can work on the file. Here we are in Photoshop. Any changes I make in here are going to be updated automatically inside of my Premiere Pro project. Here, for example, let's adjust the size of the drop shadow. Okay, that. Okay, toggle back to Premiere Pro. Well, it's kind of difficult to see, but take my word for it, that's updated. If I'm done with my project, I might well want to switch over to Encore. And if I just go back to Premiere Pro here, let me just give you an example. I'm going to pull Premiere Pro out of the way. And I'm going to, let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. There we go. And which one am I now? I'm in my Audition sequence. So I'm just going to grab that and drag and drop it from Premiere Pro into Encore. Now, I must admit at this point, with the color schemes being so similar, Premiere Pro and pretty much every other application in the suite, they look so similar, it can be difficult to tell which one you're in. I'll just let go of the mouse there. But you can see the little logo in the top left-hand corner. If in doubt, that's going to tell you which application you're looking at. Here, I've got this asset. And if I make a new timeline from it, I can now work with this dynamically in just the same way that I would have done in After Effects and Premiere Pro. So it's a dynamically linked asset. Let's minimize that for a second. Go back into Premiere Pro. And there's new applications within the suite that have similar kinds of connections. If I go into Prelude, for example, which is the new ingest application included with the suite. This application lets you add markers and comments to your clips and also then to send them over to Premiere Pro and to make rough cuts that you can send to Premiere Pro. Here's a rough cut, for example, very, very simple edit and one that's, let's have a few clips in here. Let's put this in. And this. So I've made a simple, very, very, very simple edit. I can select that, go to File, choose Send to Premiere Pro, yes, OK. And in Premiere Pro, I now have that rough cut ready for me to carry on working inside of Premiere Pro. And why would you want to use Prelude, you might be wondering? Well, the benefit of Prelude is that it allows you to add large amounts of metadata to large amounts of clips in very small number of steps. So if you are working with a lot of source media, it can save you a great deal of time when you're working on getting your media into your edit in the first place. And last but not least, we've got SpeedGrade. If I select a sequence, go to File, choose Send to Adobe SpeedGrade, Premiere Pro is going to ask me to save an IRCP file. This is the file type that SpeedGrade uses. And then I can use this advanced grading and finishing application to make adjustments to my colors, to grade very, very carefully and finish my look for my production, and then output that as files again. Now this is round tripping, it's sending files, but it's automatic. Rather than having to know the settings for those files, I can have Premiere Pro and SpeedGrade work out the details for me. So there's a little bit more than that to say, but as briefly as possible, you can see why Adobe are describing Premiere Pro as this hub application. It's the editing system, but it's also the gateway through which so many other applications access their media and also access the creative choices you've made. And especially, those choices can often be dynamic, so you can continue to make changes later and they update further down the chain live. It's a fantastic workflow. So that's just an overview of why Premiere Pro is the post-production hub of Creative Suite 6.